Hey guys, it's Kate. So today I'm going to take you through a simple self-massage, stretch, and strengthening exercise for your pec muscles. Now, although your pecs are incredibly important in posture, they are often forgotten about due to the fact that when we think about our posture, we think typically about our upper back and our neck. So, for example, when you're sitting at a desk or you're looking at your phone or reading a book, the one thing that happens is you start to get this nice little hunched over position because your body is trying to hold your neck into play, hold your neck and head in place. And so these muscles back here get really overstretched and elongated into this kind of locked up long position. And so we start to feel pain back here in our upper back and into our neck. And what we don't realize is that muscles, like all things, are reactionary and work in opposition. So while this kind of not attractive kyphotic position is happening in your upper back, what's happening in the front is these pec muscles are getting really short, contracted, and even sometimes become atrophied from this kind of lack of usage because we're locking them into this shortened position here. So today I just want to think about really opening this up and elongating this while still doing the things that you would be doing for the upper back, which would be strengthening to keep this working. You also have to strengthen and stretch the front as well. So we're going to start with a little self-massage. I think we should probably find the muscles first, but I like to kind of just feel around and feel where there's some tightness. So let's go ahead and find them. So if you start with your sternoclavicular notch, which is this little horseshoe right here, these two guys right here are your clavicles, and then this is the sternum, this big breastplate right here. So the sternoclavicular notch is that little horseshoe shape. Don't press too deeply because that's a little bit sensitive in there. But find that, and then at the bottom you have the triangle where your ribs meet together, and also don't press too hard in here. This is your xiphoid process, which is a very fragile little bone at the tip of your sternum. So, but this whole piece through here, this whole kind of central piece through here, this is the sternum, and pec major attaches right on top of that. So from here, it attaches at the end onto your humerus or your upper arm bone. So it's this whole piece right here is your pec major. So now for my ladies out there, there's a lot of breast tissue in here, so sometimes it's a little difficult to do self-massage through here. But for today, we're actually going to be working from kind of an under the arm position, so you won't have any problems there. But again, if there's any issues with tenderness or uncomfortable feeling, back off, don't do it, find another way to get in there. But it is your body, you can touch it. So starting with kind of this nice little pincer, what you're going to do is you're going to take your fingers and bring them up as if you're kind of sticking them up under your armpit. I know, not a nice feeling, but just this is just to find it. So up under your armpit, and then with your thumb, you're going to grab on top, and you're just kind of pulling that muscle through. So right now, just kind of find it. If you're having trouble finding it, something that I like to do is if you have a table or a chair or something to set your arm on top of, just to rest it. So for right now, I'm actually going to grab a couple of pillows, and I'll set it here. So you're going to grab that nice little pincer, coming up under the armpit, grabbing a hold, and you're just going to kind of roll through these pec muscles. You might actually find that there are some fun little trigger points or that the muscle jumps. That's totally normal. What you're going to try to do is just kind of find those little tender spots in that pec major. And you can kind of roll through. Once you've found it and you're finding that there's some places that maybe are a little more tender, if you want to come across and do a little friction, everything in this area is going to pretty much be pecs, so don't stress if you are like finding things and you're like, oh, I don't know if I'm on it. You're most likely on it. So kind of coming around, doing a little bit of cross fiber friction. You can even do some circular friction if it feels like that's what it needs. And then just like I said, rolling through this. Now, pec minor is a little tricky because it's deep underneath there, although there are a lot of problems that we tend to have in pec minor. So what you're going to look for, set those down. What you're going to look for is they connect on your kind of top three ribs here, and then they connect also to this fun little knob part of this bone right here. So if you come in from your shoulder, don't press too hard because it's very tender, but you should feel a little bit of almost like a round bump. That's actually a piece of your scapula, which is interesting because your scapula, you think of that coming from the back, but it's an irregular bone, so it actually protrudes through the front, and this is a little process called your coracoid process. And so it attaches to three ribs and this coracoid process. So the easiest way to find that is find that coracoid process, go right underneath it. You're probably going to hit a few fibers in there. Then the other thing is like we were doing before, where you're getting up under the armpit, and instead of pressing into the armpit and grabbing a hold of it and pulling, you are actually going to press in and try to find those ribs underneath. So if you need to have your pillows again, that's fine, or your table. So you're going to try to find the ribs. Don't get too concerned about whether you are finding the exact muscle or not. Anything that you're working in here is probably really good. So just searching for those ribs, and you might find that there's almost, it should feel almost a little like 3 little fingers that are sitting in there. That's your pec minor. So you're going to just kind of do some gentle pressing, and you don't even need to do any friction, just pressing into that muscle and just taking some nice deep breaths there. You'll find that this probably is very tender on a lot of you, just because it's not typically worked, and it does need a lot of love and a lot of attention, but we forget about it. So, because this doesn't, when we have issues with our posture, 9 times out of 10, we're not feeling it in our pecs. So kind of rolling through that. Good, and so now make sure you do both sides, so you're coming in, picking that up, rolling that through, maybe doing a little friction across the muscle. And then once you've done pec major, you can come in and again, I'm just taking my fingers and bringing them up and in, and just kind of finding my rib cage underneath there and taking some nice deep breaths. And if you want to find the top of it, go ahead and search for that. You'll feel your shoulder bone here, drag your fingers in, and you'll see that kind of outside of your shoulder bone, about 1 inch in, there's this nice little knob that is your coracoid process. And don't do any work directly on it, but kind of right below it, you're going to get a little bit of pec minor in there as well. So that's a little bit of self-massage for that. And so come back and meet me back here in a minute, and we're going to do a stretch to kind of open that up. All right, I'll see you in a few. All right, guys, so now I'm going to show you a wall stretch. So especially after you just did all of this wonderful kind of self-massage work in here, it's really important that you stretch those pecs out. And there's a ton of different ways that you can stretch them, but I really love a wall stretch because you can kind of take it anywhere you go. It's really convenient, and it's very easy to do. So go ahead and find a corner, a wall. Door frames work really well for this. And you are just going to grab a hold. I'm going to grab a hold to the kind of wall right here, just because I don't think you need to dive too deeply into my closets. But so grab a hold of a wall, and you can play with where this arm is in space. It can be anywhere from about 90 degrees from your body all the way to about 180 degrees. You can play with that anywhere on the wall. You can also play with whether you like to do it with a straight elbow or a bent elbow. So straight elbow, you're going to get a little bit more into your bicep muscles and a little stretch of the biceps, which is great. But if you really want to isolate those pecs, do it with a bent elbow. So I'm going to be just above my 90 degrees because that's where it feels good on me. So you're going to grab a hold of the wall, and you're just going to turn away. And you're going to hang out here for a little while and just breathing into it. And you should be feeling this nice opening stretch of these pectoral muscles. So breathing into it. Now, if you're feeling like this is extremely tight and you want to get a little better opening, a great thing to do is a tense and release. So when you find that kind of full range of motion, when you get to the stretch and you're in your full range of motion, back off for about 1 inch, and then using this wall with about 20 to 30% of your strength, press. So you're pressing towards the wall. Press for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and release. Take a nice deep breath in, and on the exhale, turn away and do your stretch again. And then hold this stretch for about 10 seconds or a little longer. And then go ahead and do that again. So back off about 1 inch and pressing into the wall for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and release. Deep breath in and turning that away. And I'm using, I have little like nooks in my wall that I'm using, but like I said, here, I'll let you dive into this a little. A door frame works really well because you can actually grab a hold and turn. And you're just opening that up. And that is all wall stretch is. So like I said, you can kind of do that anywhere and everywhere. Make sure you're doing both sides. And like I said, play with the different levels. Like I tend to love going up high. It feels really good for me because it gets into those pec minor muscles that we talked about. And breathing into it, you can just like sit into it. It just should feel really good. All stretching should feel really good. If it ever feels strained or pulled or uncomfortable, back off. That's not a good stretch. A good stretch is where it feels comfortable and relaxed and like it's productive. If it feels like you're forcing a stretch to happen, you're actually doing something that's very counterproductive to stretching because your body is going to try to protect itself. So while you're trying to pull and force that to happen, your body is fighting you as opposed to just easing into it and making it feel really good. Then your body will relax and start to stretch and elongate those muscles even more. All right, so meet me back here. We're gonna do a nice little strength exercise or a couple different strength exercises for your pecs. I'll see you in a minute. All right, so now we're gonna do some strength for your pecs. I have 3 different exercises that I really love for this. And again, the idea is that if you are getting into a position where you're closing this off and this is becoming overly contracted, it's also not functioning and working properly. So you also have to build these muscles. I know it feels like you want to get good posture. You're like, I need to build my back up, right? You still have to build your pecs because the more muscles you have there, the more functionality it will have. So I have 3 different exercises. We're gonna do a press, a fly, and an overhead. And this is just to keep this nice and open. So for those of you that don't have weights at home, you can use a can. It doesn't have to be heavy weights. This can be very light. I'm using, today, just for demo purposes, I'm using 8-pound dumbbells, but you can use a 3-pound dumbbell, a couple of like I said, like cans or anything that you have lying around, a heavy bag, just holding it in both hands, make sure it's pretty even. And the idea is that you're just trying to get these muscles to start working and doing what they're supposed to do. So we're gonna start with a press. So laying on your back, if you haven't watched my video on how to connect into your core and your transverse abdominals, this might be a good time to pause this and go watch that, because in this, you're gonna have to connect to your transverse abdominals to make this work. So you're gonna start laying on your back. Your feet are on the floor. Your lower back is relaxed and in a neutral position. So now you're going to engage your transverse abdominals by tilting the pelvis and scooping out those abdominal muscles so that this stays nice and contracted the whole time. So then, with a wide grip, so your elbows are out to the side, you should be at about a 90-degree angle, palms are facing out. You are just going to press straight up toward the ceiling. Now, you want the weights to be in line with your chest. You don't want them to be over your face. So they are in line with your chest and straight up from there. So that you're, number 1, not gonna drop a weight on your face. And number 2, you're actually engaging those lower pectoral muscles in the pec major. So that's all it is, just bringing it straight up. You can start with maybe 2 sets of 10, 2 sets of 15, whatever feels good to you, and you're just bringing it down, tapping the elbows and bringing it straight up toward the ceiling. And so that is a press. Now we're gonna move on to a fly. So for those of you that have some restrictions or shoulder issues, you really wanna maybe start with a lighter weight here, or if it's bothering you, just stick with the press and don't worry about this one for now. But so this one starts with the weights, palms facing each other. Again, not over your face, it's directly above you, or directly above the chest. Again, transverse abdominals are engaged and holding tight, and you are just going to bring the weights up to the ceiling, and then you're gonna open and close. And this is a pec fly. And now if you have, like I said, some shoulder issues, make sure that your arms aren't so high that you are struggling with that, and I'm gonna do it for you. Make sure that they're right over your chest, and you don't have to open them all the way to the floor. They can come maybe like 45 degrees away from the floor, or if you're struggling, maybe you're only opening to here today, that's fine. You're just opening and closing, engaging your core, and don't forget to breathe, please. Neck and shoulders should be completely relaxed. And that is a fly. Again, 2 sets of 10, 2 sets of 15, 3 sets of 10, it's up to you. So now the last one we're gonna do is an overhead. So this is actually gonna engage those lower pectoral fibers as well as a little bit of those pec minor fibers as well. So weights start straight up like they did for fly. Abs are, transverse abdominals are engaged. And you are just going to reach the weights over the head and bring them back toward the abdomen. And the arms stay pretty straight. They're soft, the elbows are soft, but you're not bending the elbows. That's a tricep workout. This is for pec minor, pec major lower fibers. And you're also gonna get a little bit of lats in there. It's just gonna open that all up. So an overhead and down. Now, like I said, if you are not engaging your transverse abdominals, what will happen is now you're doing something totally different and engaging the wrong muscles to make that happen. So really make sure that the lower back is flat on the floor for this. And so that is press, fly, and overhead. So just a quick little reminder, we do this because if this is not healthy and well and doing what it's supposed to do, no matter how much work we do to our upper back and our neck, if this isn't healthy and doing what it's supposed to do, these muscles are just going to pull you right back into that bad kyphotic style of posturing. And so you really have to focus on this. It's a 50-50 kind of thing. I'm gonna geek out on you for a quick second. There are two neurological laws that I think apply to this perfectly. So there's Wolff's Law and there's Hooke's Law. So I'm gonna read you quickly. So Wolff's Law states, biological systems deform in relation to lines of force imposed upon them. Hooke's Law states, deformation imposed on an elastic body is in proportion to the stress placed upon it. So those two laws are basically saying if you keep making that face, it's gonna stay that way. And so the same thing goes for your posture, that, you know, if you are allowing yourself to be in this kind of deformation position, at a certain point in time, your body is actually going to build the muscle fibers around it to keep it in that position. You are telling your body that this imbalanced position is how you are functioning, and so it's going to say, okay, let's build more muscles back here, less muscles up here, and it's going to be much more difficult for you to come back to this nice, solid posture. So I hope that this was helpful. I hope that you are now feeling nice and tall and open and elongated. And if you have any questions, please feel free to comment below. If you liked the video, give it a nice thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe. And I look forward to seeing you back here again very soon. Be well.